Welcome to Voyage of the Geek for another week, the show where we do post-reactions to classic films from across time and genre. We've got a couple of standard warnings in place. First off, if you haven't seen the film, there will be massive spoilers involved, even to the point where you might not need to see the film once you're done with this particular show. And secondly, truth mileage may vary. Spurious accounts, spurious facts contained within. Joining me as always, Dan Miller, Tom McGill, together with Rick Legato. And tonight we're going to take a look at a piece of sci-fi classic cinema from the 60s. A bit of a departure from some of our previous shows, which is sci-fi in outer space. This time we're looking at a bit of sci-fi in the inner space. And it's the 1966 sci-fi adventure, The Fantastic Voyage.
What is your industry? How many of you are there?
Welcome, gentlemen. Today, looking at The Fantastic Voyage, 1966. And first off, where did you find this film? Did you find it in your younger years, Dan, or was this the first time you saw this particular film?
No, this is probably the second time. So, yeah, I think I'd seen it once before. TV, maybe more than once. But, yeah, not too familiar with it, but yep.
Obviously, it predates us.
Mm-hmm.
By a couple of years, not a lot of years, but enough years. But quite a well put together piece. We'll get into it a little bit more in detail shortly. But as a sci-fi outing, they spared no expense. $5 million, Tom, I believe $5,100,000 is the budget.
6 is what I read, but
Yeah.
around that area.
And it had a box office, I believe a domestic box office about 12 million, something like that. So I think they doubled their money-ish. But that probably would have only been domestic numbers. It probably saw worldwide quite a good pay packet.
At the time they made it, they advertised it as the most expensive science fiction film made to date.
It seems that was common, wasn't it? They were forever trying to outdo the last most expensive science fiction film. But you have to, when you watch this film, you have to remind yourself it's 1966, don't you? It's
The sets show the money they spent.
It's reasonably well done and a pretty good cast. We'll have a chat about the cast shortly. What about you, Tom? Did you see this when you were little Tommy?
Yeah, I would have been 8 or 9 years old. I remember distinctly that I was allowed to stay up late to watch this film. My dad allowed me, because in Germany, all the movies always started 8:15 in the evening. That's film time, and to be allowed as an 8, 9-year-old to stay up 8:15 to start a movie that then goes till 9:45. There's no commercial breaks or anything. So it was fantastic. My dad said, "Oh, you got to see this film," and I stayed up and I loved it.
Well, you're an avid scuba diver.
Yes.
A marine biologist type, and
Yes.
possibly this film might have triggered something in little Tommy that later on.
Certainly watching it now, it irks me a lot that they're not wearing fins.
It does frustrate, doesn't
It frustrates me to no end.
Because they're swimming in some of the shots, or trying to. I think we've got some wire shots there as well. What about you?
Actually, my dad made me watch it. You know how in the old days on TV 8:30 they'd have the films. So yeah, my dad made me watch it, and then it was the sort of film that was on at least once a year.
But made you watch it sounds like you were reluctant.
No, I thought it was cool.
Yeah, same.
But there were films where, like, I had to like the film, and this was one of those. And I thought it was really good. And then I think it was just something that Dad and I, there were certain films that every time they came on,
Planet of the Apes.
Like that we'd watch. Basically stuff that he saw.
Yes.
He was a younger man.
It's certainly very memorable. You don't forget it.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting look at the inner workings of the human body, set against a sci-fi adventure type background, with a lot of the tech at the time, and we're talking about 1966, so it predates the moonshot. I think the opening bit of text at the start of the film makes reference to the moonshot and how close we are to putting man on the moon, and perhaps one day this will be reality, I think is along those lines. Tommy, you might have it written down possibly.
No, I'm just looking at what the German title of the film was. back then.
Yes. Yeah, there was an alternate title that
Die
did.
Fantastische Reise, I think, but I'm going to look it up.
I love the German titles
It's a
of
bit-
all these films.
That sounds like an X-rated film.
Say it again, Tommy.
I'm not. It's spurious. This is one of those spurious contents, right? I
Yep.
haven't looked it up yet, but I think it's Die Fantastische Reise.
What does Reise mean?
Well, it's the Fantastic Voyage, really.
Okay.
Just
It is a
properly-
bit of a weird title. I don't know. It's not very descriptive of what you're going to get in the box.
It was also known as Microscopia.
That's a little better, but yeah, it's a bit quirky and a
Yeah.
bit weird.
Yeah,
Yeah,
wouldn't
not
have
as,
made a lot of sense
not
to
as pithy.
as many people.
Yeah.
Yeah, because the Fantastic Voyage.
Could be anything.
It could be
you could be
anything.
sailing around the ocean.
Yes, it could be anything.
You could be doing anything. Yeah.
Yes. So
But then they advertise it with this poster that we're looking at now. I don't know if we want to get into that already. And of course our thousands of listeners on the podcast cannot see it. Yeah, it advertises much more action than we see in the film. They
Yes.
have one of the final
albeit,
shots.
this did actually
does
happen
happen.
in the film, which
But,
is not
there's-
always
there's-
true of
there's
movie posters.
two laser cannons in this poster, as
Yes.
if everyone had their own.
Yes.
And there's a guy diving for safety out of the sub, as if there's an enemy that they're shooting out of the thing.
Yes.
And it's shooting the sub with a laser cannon.
They
which-
just dialed it up a little bit more.
True.
This
the poster.
this poster, by the way, worth noting, the edges of this poster come to us thanks to Photoshop's new AI feature. Most movie posters aren't 1920 by 1080, so these two bits on the edge were added by AI, and it actually looks
Now that you mention it,
Looks
I
pretty
can
good.
see the seam.
yes.
Right to the right of the
Just down
letters.
Only if you mention
Exactly.
it. Yeah.
But before I did not
it
notice.
did quite a good job, especially over there. Imagine how long it would have taken me to paint that.
Well,
All those cells look pretty
I'll
good.
be damned.
It's worth mentioning anyway. So the cast for this film: Stephen Boyd as Grant, Raquel Welch as Cora, Edmund O'Brien as General Carter, Donald Pleasance, Dr. Michaels, Arthur O'Connell, Colonel Donald Reed, William Redfield as Captain Bill Owens, the sub-pilot, Arthur Kennedy as Dr. Duval, the
that was-
surgeon,
Dr. Duval. I was wondering who that actor was.
Jean Delval as Jan Benes, or
Benish, I
the
think they-
Benesh, they pronounce
yes,
it. He's
Benesh.
the body.
Okay.
Basically,
Right.
Body.
the subject. Barry Coe as a communication aide, Ken Scott, Secret Service, but most of these people are sort of background. But then there's a strange name that pops up, James Brolin. James Brolin,
technician.
father of Thanos, played a technician in the background there somewhere.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find him. Could you find him in the film?
I saw photos of him but I saw those photos before I watched, and I didn't look for him. After.
Famously married Barbara Streisand.
Yes.
Okay. There's a few famous-ish people. I think I can't remember the name, but it's the engineer from Star Trek. He's just one of the
Doohan.
back.
James Doohan, isn't there?
Yeah.
James Doohan's in it.
I think so, yes.
Really?
He's
Didn't
one
even
of the
know that.
background technicians doing
Yes,
technical
I'm
things.
looking at it. He's Dr. Sawyer. He was a hypothermia something, because they kept the body cold to slow down the blood pressure and things like that, so that it wouldn't going against the rapids all the way through the
For
film.
those that don't know, the characters are all going to be shrunk down and go inside a human body.
Well, let's have a look at that. Dan is the master of ceremonies when it comes to our narrative journey through the film, which is how we like to discuss the movie and let the story, let the linear pathway through the actual film itself guide us in various stop-off points where we discuss all things from visual effects to technical to narrative to acting to whatever sort of pops up along the way. So, Dan, where do we start with this one?
Can I actually interrupt before we start? Because I want to start with the credits.
The opening credits.
The opening credits, because it reminded me of the Matrix a little. In that the
Matrix.
Yeah, the Matrix was trying to show us advanced computers. You know, with that green, the green lettering all falling, and this has got what was for 1966. The type,
Pretty annoying.
the type being typed out on the screen,
and graphic overlays.
yeah, and graphic overlays,
An oscilloscope type thing.
There was a sound effect that I believe was used later on in television when I Dream of Jeannie used to go like this and appear.
yeah.
Exactly the same sound effect. Boing.
A lot of those sound effects were developed. I think they even had a name. That sound effects pack had a name from the person who developed it. And they were used just repeatedly through all sorts of films. They turn up. They're like classic sound effects. Yeah. A lot of them.
Probably a lot of the sound effects were done by the same studio in Hollywood or something, where they send out for the sound effects to be done, and they tap into their own library and archive. The thing that separated Lucas Star Wars was that they totally redid all of the sound effects from scratch. There was, except for one, Tommy. What was it?
Don't tell me that the Williams scream is in there
Yes.
somewhere.
Didn't you
Yes,
know the
it
Williams
is.
scream was in the
It's
Star
in
Wars?
there.
I
Yes.
probably did many times.
I think it's a stormtrooper getting
Falling off something.
something. Yeah,
Yeah.
falling off the cliff or something.
I think he falls when Darth Vader and Obi-Wan meet, and then he
It's the guy who falls,
kills all
yeah.
down into the hole when they're
But does he scream?
blasting their way off the Death Star. Yes, you will.
So
see.
continue with the credits.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
in the credits, just we had talked about the sound effects. Also noticeable, there's no music. Just worth mentioning.
Yeah, because they go full on with like the sound, or the supposed sound of the computer tapes back when computers had those big reels. And it was, and for 1966, a lot of that stuff was kind of still advanced. Like there was no graphics or stuff like that. So they were kind of projecting into the future what they thought computers might be able to do.
Yeah.
And it was all just sort of
Sound effects.
what I would call computer porn. Just the reels, the digital readouts,
And every actor
Flashy
has its
lights.
own screen.
lights and stuff
Yeah.
like that.
And there was a subtle heartbeat
Yeah,
underneath.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the oscilloscope going
So,
off
yeah.
with the
So
spices.
it was
The rhythm.
technology and medical.
Yeah.
And before every actor has his own little slide. So one slide ends, a new slide comes in, one name. Next slide, another name.
And I thought for the time it was very unusual. I thought.
Yeah, it was.
Definitely the composer who did the music deliberately said, "No, we're not having music in the opening titles."
Yeah, it does look funny when it comes up with the guy's name, music, and there's no music in the titles. It's like, well, you had your feet up at this point.
So it's got this kind of minimalistic kind of audio scape that starts up the credits, that kicks us off in the credits, which is pretty, like you were saying, it's pretty unique and gives us sort of a strange flavour to it that people wouldn't have seen much.
When we used to teach a motion graphics course, remember when I used to bring a whole heap of examples of famous motion graphics, a lot of it came from the 60s. Some of the Alfred Hitchcock movies of the 60s had stunning motion graphics, Vertigo and
The title design.
the title design and motion graphics for the opening sequences. They really started.
The little short films. A
Yeah,
lot
they
of them,
were.
aren't
That's
they?
when they started to be treated like short films, and we started to see elements of narrative coming into the film. And nowadays, go and watch a Marvel film, and you'll literally see the plot of the movie in the opening title sequence. They don't even try to conceal anything. You can go back at the end of the movie and watch it again, and you'll see, okay, yeah, it was all there.
Also, the quantity of the credits. There seemed to be a lot of front-loaded credits going on with people and other people who were associated with the movie and this and that and information. And then when you get to the end of the movie, it's, all right, thanks, see ya.
Yeah, that's how movies used. Yeah, that's how they work.
But it's completely the opposite now. There's like 15 minutes of just endless scrolling of credits at the end. But because we're in the click it quick generation, I don't think there's much more room for those long titles. I don't know.
It's a leftover from the theater days when you have your program. You see, this is the show that I'm watching. These are all the actors that are on stage. It's the start of the start of a play. It introduces the characters.
This is what you're going to get.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where do we start, Dan? We've got a log line.
Well, yeah, we usually start with a log line, but okay, so the log line is something like I don't know. They're going to get shrunk down as Honey I Shrunk the Kids. They're going to get shrunk down and go inside this person's body, essentially to cure them is what they need to do. And the reason why they're doing it is because, there's some sort of there's a very important person. He's a scientist, and they need that person to be alive. And there's a kind of a Cold War.
It's important to note that the shrinking part, the miniaturization, is not untested. It's actually a solid technology. It's not like this is the first time. It might be the first time they're putting shrunken people inside a body, but as a technology, it's well developed in the film. You know what I mean? It's not an experimental thing. And the premise is that the enemy, unnamed, probably Russia.
The other side, I think, as they're called.
The enemy also have the shrinky technology
as well,
which means that you can shrink an army basically, and deliver them to the battlefield, and then they'll grow. But the problem is that nobody has worked out how to control the rate of de-shrinkage.
Yes,
except for the guy.
That's right.
That is now lying on the table, which I thought was a good narrative point. That the very technology that could bring him undone, they have to keep him alive
using that technology
because he has the secret to controlling it, and he's defected, and he's in this state on the operating table because of an assassination attempt in the first couple of minutes of the film.
So the opening part is him landing in an aeroplane. So he's some sort of scientist. He's like Albert Einstein or something or other.
And I thought that the use of the miniaturized technology as the actual main plot driver, not just a bit of tech over there, right? It is literally the reason for the story is that they need to learn how to control this miniaturization. But yes, what's the limitations of miniaturization in the film?
There's the time limitation, which is 60 minutes.
60 minutes. It's a nice round figure that we can work with.
And of course, the movie is 90 minutes long. And a nice little device that they employ is that after 30 minutes, the fantastic voyage begins. Yeah. So the second, the end of the remaining 60 minutes are almost in real time.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
There's certain sequences that clearly couldn't have happened, like they get from here to over there.
Yes.
And
they
things
go
like that,
outside of the ship. They're immediately in their suits. In fact, they have overalls at the start. And then when they go into their scuba suits, they take off their overalls and their scuba suits underneath. So they were already in them.
There's certain things that happen in the film that clearly would have taken longer to do. But the film itself does actually progress in real time as far as, give or take a minute or two, as 60 minutes, which I think is an interesting challenge for filmmakers.
It's good fun. Yeah. All right. So, what's his guy's name? Benish. Benish is the Einstein scientist.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's arrived. There's been an assassination attempt, but he escapes the assassination attempt, and he's now in a secure facility. But he didn't quite escape the assassination. He's got a blood clot in his head.
Yes.
And they need him so that he can tell them how to keep things shrunk for longer than 60 minutes. All right. So the next person to arrive is one of our heroes. What's his name? Steve?
Steve Boyd is the actor.
Oh, what's the character's
Grant.
name? Grant.
But he's definitely a Steve,
and
isn't he?
Yeah, he's like one of those suited guys from the 1950s or 60s. Always wears a suit. Always has perfectly combed hair.
He is a James Bond character. When they pick him up, he's got lipstick on his. I mean, he's just brought the guy back from overseas. He brought Benish into the country.
He successfully delivered him to
delivered him, and then he pissed off to his girlfriend. Jumped into the bed with the first
2 minutes after he delivered him.
Yep.
Car accident, assassination attempt. Guy's now a vegetable.
Yep. And then they're going to bring him to the secret facility. That
they're bringing Grant in, and we're seeing it through his eyes. He's the exposing element essentially. We're telling it the story of discovery because he doesn't know about the place. He is being left in the dark by everyone. They park the car with him inside, and then they leave the car and say, "You stay in the car."
Yes.
He's a security expert, frogman.
Yes. Yes.
Frogman.
Is how he's described.
He was like in World War II. He was a frogman.
Yes, I saw a review where they said, so he was a frogman in the war, as they said.
Yes.
And of course, the other wars like Korea were called Korea, and Vietnam was called Vietnam. And this was The War, which this film is 66. So that was over 25 years earlier. How old is this guy?
66.
This movie is 1966.
Well, the movie is, but actually, if you think about it, the movie is meant to be set in 1994.
Well, is it?
Yes, it's meant to be set
is
around
it?
about the year 2000.
Well,
It's not meant to be.
It's
I
not,
didn't
he
know
was
that.
not a frogman in World War II.
Yeah, in the war.
He was in the
So
war.
it's a little bit
And
confusing,
yeah.
but it's meant to be. So anyway,
So what
He's in-
1994?
something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, 1994. It was meant to be
I
set.
didn't realise
No, me neither, which is a good thing. That means they didn't shove that down our throat. Because I looked at the tech, and all of it could have existed in 1966 with the
feel-
example, with
Except
the
for the shrinking.
exception of the shrinking.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, he's sitting in the car in an abandoned parking lot, and then
Lovely special effect. I love that.
yeah, so,
It's so
the car
easy, so
sinks
simple.
into the ground because it's on one of those elevators, the secret elevator that's just an abandoned car park.
The special effect here is that the whole thing is shot at a 3/4 angle, top down, and you're looking at the car at a 3/4 angle, and then they just essentially cut out a little bit in the shape of the hole, the square hole, and then they just shrunk that bit of footage by itself down. So it's so simple and looks so good. The perspective is all wrong and it doesn't work because the car keeps, the perspective of the shaft is down and the car keeps
Getting
being visible,
smaller.
gets
Yes.
smaller, but it just...
It was
I
pretty good effect.
Clever.
Yeah, yeah. So they take him down into the secret base. So describe to us what's the secret base like?
It's enormous. It's so enormous. How do they get around in the secret base?
Yeah, the little electric carts.
Little carts, little golf carts.
Yeah, it looks like a James Bond villain's
Yes.
hideout.
Yeah.
And the thing that took me by surprise is that they were big, open, freeway-size corridors, right? So you look at it and go, yeah, carts would be pretty good because that looks like a massive space. But then they proceed to drive the carts straight into the offices.
Yes, straight up to a desk and hand somebody something.
People are sitting with their desks on the busy road. They just have their desk right there.
And they don't slow down,
No.
right? There are traffic wardens
There's traffic wardens there for the
guiding the golf carts at great breakneck speed.
And the golf carts go up, sort of like
Little ramps.
ramps to the next level, and there's multiple levels in it.
It's a strange lair,
And there's
secret
lighting,
base
and there's
lair.
even flashy lights,
Yeah.
which represent that it's high tech.
Yeah.
Attached to different things.
Now this is filmed at a sports arena. This is a
Yes.
Was
this
it?
is this is a place I forgot the name, but it's an actual building that they filmed it at.
Big concrete thing. So yeah. And I think they actually had to get out of there every day. So they had to
to let the
undress the
games-
set and then come back in and dress the set again for shooting that night.
Yep.
It kind of reminds me. Does anybody watch Jacques Tati movies?
Yes,
Am I
Jacques
the
Tati.
only-
No, you're not the only one.
Okay.
Mon Oncle and the Postman
and Modern Life.
Modern Life. I
Example?
don't know. Oh, is that the one with the? No, Mon Oncle is the one with the
I think
house.
I might have
Modern
seen
Life.
these
Yeah,
films.
yeah.
The-
Is
the-
it like does some of these take place in like a restaurant? And
Yes,
there's like
yes.
things going on all over the place.
Yeah, all over the
Okay,
place.
yes.
It's
Very
like these
silent
big.
I am
films.
familiar.
Very
Giant-
visual comedy, hardly any words spoken, and you
Yes.
just watch and you just see the comedy
Yeah, it's
unfold.
it's
And the
pantomime.
camera work, the cinematography is sometimes it's just like this establishing shot that
Yeah.
just sits there for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And little people walking around and talking.
If you've ever seen
and-
the design artwork for The Incredibles, it's got the same design aesthetic. Suits, everybody's in a suit, and women are wearing the Dane Edna glasses, and it's super French, isn't it?
Yeah,
it is.
yeah.
Yes, I've seen it on SBS a couple of times.
So it's a bit like that. There's all these things going on, interesting people walking up and down with clipboards and all sorts of fantastic stuff.
Yes, it's not sparse. A lot of these futuristic lairs or subterranean bases have no one in them.
Yeah, I like the fact they have those, what do you call them, the guardrails
Yeah.
attached to desks.
Yes.
So you hand in your card, and the guy behind the desk opens up.
Yeah. In the office. Yeah. Screening.
All right. So what's his name? Benson?
Grant gets delivered by a golf cart in front of his
Yes.
general.
To his general, and the general's going to start to tell him the story, right? So
General Carter.
yeah,
General
so they've got the Benson guy, and he's on a medical bed in like a surgery, and he's sort of out, he's asleep, and there's about 1,000
He's comatose, and
comatose.
there's
There are
doctors
1,000
around him.
surgeons, and the general says, we've called you back. We need you for a mission. We're going to shrink you down to the size of an ant.
A microbe.
A microbe.
The set design is great, where you've got a sunken theatre, operating theatre.
Yes.
And then above are these, through the windows, are the generals and the more security type people, radar operators and things like that. But they're looking down into this pristine
down. And
white.
also they have 2 rooms that they look down in. The one is where Benish is lying with the doctors.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then the other one is the control room, which looks like a Cape Canaveral
Yes.
control room with lots of people sitting in front of their desk, in front of their computers, and big readout map of a human body with a guy who walks a scaffolding and puts the little
Like
dots
putting-
down where the
map.
Yeah, on the map of the
Except
human
the
body.
map is the human body.
How
It's-
they dealt with the
visually
lack of computers
well-presented.
is brilliant in this film. You know, which we would just use a computer with an overlay and a little flashing blip, whereas they've got a 32-foot high mannequin sort
It's
of
supposed to be
overlay.
science fiction, but the general uses a slide ruler
Yes.
to calculate
Yes.
Which he's
the
got in
size
his
of
top
that.
pocket.
He
And
actually, now we've got to stop for this for a second. He needed to calculate something in his head about the
it was the distance of the heart or something. It
yeah,
was
something
to get
in
to
the
the other
speed
side of
or
the
something.
heart.
Yeah,
and he
that's
had
right.
a pocket slide rule. He had just this cute, tiny little one which he just kind of adjusted, and he was
Just for miniaturization.
like, do some multiplication.
57 seconds. They've only got 57
And actually, and
seconds.
what's the organisation called? That CD.
CMDF or something. Yeah,
it's-
Combined Miniature Deterrent Forces,
That's
CMDF.
Yes, something like that. Okay, so Grant is it Grant? Is
Grant,
our hero,
yes.
hero? James Bond Grant needs a bit of convincing to. He's not too keen on being shrunk down.
But
Well,
he
the general-
immediately sees the nurse. That's the first thing. They show him the Dr. Duval.
Yes.
And he says, this is the doctor.
He sees them
And
on
He
telescopes.
sees them on a little television
Yes.
screen, and he immediately points out, "Who's the nurse?"
Yes, that's right.
That's the
Yes.
first question he asks.
Yes, by the way, he's a security guy, and the general wants him to go along on the mission. He still doesn't know that the mission involves shrinking, but he wants him to go along because there may be
The enemy.
There may be the enemy within, and sabotage / assassination may happen.
So this is where we start to meet the characters, the other characters.
Yep.
And so we've got Duval, and
surgeon?
Duval
Yes.
is a surgeon.
Aptly assisted by Cora,
Cora,
played by Rachel Welsh.
yes. And so they're the surgery team.
Her first role, wasn't it?
Her first role under contract with Fox Studios. She had done other stuff before.
Okay, she wasn't a bad actress. In
This
fact,
was just
watching
before-
this movie, I didn't realise she was such a good actress. She's pretty good.
I think
Yeah,
10,000
she did it
10,000 BC was the same year, I think 1966, and that's the film that made her famous. So this is just before she got well known.
And then there's Donald Pleasance, who's Dr. Michaels.
Yes, he sneaks into our movies quite often.
Yep. And so he's like the commander of the thing. He's like the sort of the boss, right?
He's also a
He's
medical
certainly in charge of the
professional.
mission.
Medical professional. And then there's also the pilot who's going to drive the submarine.
Captain Bill Owens.
Captain Bill Owens.
Who also designed.
Yes, he designed the sub.
Okay. So we kind of meet all of those people. And then basically Grant, our James Bond hero, is essentially ordered to, lead this mission. Not lead, but protect the people on this mission. And then
He's there to keep an eye out for sabotage. But overriding anything is to always listen to Michaels,
yes.
played by Donald Pleasance, who is in charge, who was the most trusted by the
Yes.
general.
Yes, who is clearly the bad guy, in
Yes.
other words.
Yes. Takes about 3 minutes to work that out.
And then, but they kind of, in the story, they kind of suspect Duval and Cora. They're a bit...
They're doing it at the start when they introduce them. They say, why am I on this mission? You're here on this mission in order to protect the, Benish from Sabotage. And he says, oh, you suspect the surgeon, do you? Mm-hmm. So they set that up at the start.
Yes.
And then later they do something interesting. We might get to that when they get into the body, but they marvel at the miracle of breathing, of oxygenation of the blood. Mm-hmm. And it turns out that the Dr. Duval is a Christian and he thinks about the creator, whereas Michaels is the atheist who thinks it's all science. And so at that point, they sort of, to an audience in the 60s, which was a bit more religious world than we live in today, showing that I think that's a deliberate choice to show that one is a good Christian and the other one is an atheist and possibly the bad guy.
Yes, yes.
They
Can't
had
be
some
trusted.
good dialogue there, jumping ahead, because at some parts of the film, Duval would say a line of poetry when something majestic was happening, and then
His
Grant
observations were, yes,
would finish
majestic.
the line of poetry,
Yeah.
and then Michael's Pleasance would add some sort of scientific notation to the end of it. The three of them. It was rather well written. I
And
thought.
also, whenever Cora, when the woman says something, it's always about feelings. They talk about facts and things they see, and she talks about things like she feels. Oh, isn't it beautiful? Oh, imagine me here for the first time. She has the emotion in her part of the script.
All right, so they're off and away. Essentially, what else do we have to cover? They have to go and get sterilized.
We get sterilized, and we also get a radioactive particle. A particle.
No, that's right.
A micron.
Well, we'll do that when they get to the ship.
It's before they get shrunk,
Okay.
right?
First, we have to do sterilization. There was one joke that they made, very subtle. Did you catch the joke?
No, I don't think I did.
They all have to get sterilized
Yeah.
before they go into
So
the human
they walk
body.
through the UV purple room.
And then, sterilizing means you have to go into a purple room.
Yep.
But anyway, and you just have to walk through. You remember Omega Strain where they went down through all those levels or whatever it was?
This is the 1990s.
Anyway, this is quick sterilization.
What's the joke?
They walk past a sign that says sterilization, and Grant says, the things I do for my country. And he goes in.
Oh, that's why he says it.
Very subtle joke.
Too
Very,
subtle for me.
Very, very subtle. All right.
There was definitely, prior to the mission kicking off, there was a discussion with the colonel, who was a doctor. He was in a uniform, but he's a doctor, about the unsatisfactory situation of having a woman go along.
Yes, that's right. Yes,
yes.
He didn't think that this was no place for a woman.
Yes, yes.
No, this is 1966. When was the Cage, the pilot for Star Trek? Now, Star Trek, the series kicked off in 66, didn't it? So the pilot must have been a year or two before.
Yeah.
But they have the same thing in there. They have Captain Pike being miffed. In his introduction on the Enterprise bridge is that he's miffed about. I mean, I still haven't gotten used to seeing a woman on the bridge because number one is a female.
Yeah.
So this is the 60s. Yes, women are there to be easy on the eyes and to cook.
Yep.
But
Exclusively.
she is, to defend the movie, she's like Duval's assistant, and she's got to go along because she's part of the team.
Yeah, so that's
She's
pretty good.
part
She
of
has worked herself into that position. She is a accomplished scientist on her own.
Yep.
And Duval, to his credit, doesn't see her as anything other than
Completely respects her. Yet
As-
our
yeah.
hero, the moment he walks into the laser room with her, he says, "How good are you in the kitchen?"
Yes, but and I can defend the movie again on that line, because she jokes with him. I think they were both having a joke that clearly she wasn't the sort of person who was good at cooking.
Yeah.
She was the sort of person who was a technician. And when he comes in and says, so how good are you at cooking then? And she looks up and says, they both have a little tiny joke. So I thought that one was okay.
Yeah, same.
And to his credit, he defends her later on when he says, "I saw the laser; it was bolted down properly." Right? When they start to shoot blame onto her because she said, "I'm sure I fastened it."
I thought it was
Well, it
well
comes
shot.
later.
We'll get to that. But yes, there was some nice shooting to allow us as the audience to not completely be sure whether she did actually strap
Yes,
it down.
there are some.
We see her start doing it, but then they don't show the rest of the scene from sort of here down. So we never know whether she actually did it.
All right, so let's catch up. So they've gone through the sterilization thing, and then they go into this scientific lab. It's a bit like Half-Life or something or other. They're waiting for you in the test chamber, right? So and there's a kind of a submarine in there, and they and it's all on a raised dais, and there's technology all around it, and they all climb in.
Now that submarine was built. That set piece, as such, exterior and exterior,
Yes.
was a proper set.
Yes.
Built actual.
With detachable walls and detachable segments, so they could get the camera in. But that's $3 million of
Well, you
the
certainly-
the
you
budget is the set.
It was all there
Yeah.
too. Yeah, all that money you could see on the screen. That and the control rooms
The control
upstairs
room
and
that
stuff.
was
But
money
the submarine, you got a sense of scale
Yeah.
that really didn't fall apart at all. Right? There was at no point you thought, well, hang on, why am I in the TARDIS? This room shouldn't exist. I've seen the outside.
Yeah, because
of
it was
this
a
thing.
real thing. They
It
could
was a
stick the
real
camera
thing.
inside,
and
they
that
could
would be why.
They could look through the windows on the outside. Yeah.
But it does. I collect. Let me. It's a good reminder. I collect images from the film to put up on the screen, which should have been up there for the last 25 minutes. But when you see those images, when I do the collection and I see them in a Windows folder, you start to realise how much went on in that little bridge area of that submarine, because I'm taking every 40th frame or every 60th frame from the film, and there's this massive cluster in the film, and they're all standing in those windows at the front of the submarine.
They used it a lot.
Yes.
They used it a lot. So they get set up in there. There's they all get to their stations.
That's right. Grant is assigned the station of communications officer. He's the radio operator.
Well, I don't think they even get a radio.
No, they definitely get a radio.
They get
a Morse code
Yes,
thing.
that's right. Yes.
They get a bleepy Morse code
Yeah.
thing for some reason.
Well, the reason is that once you're shrunk, your radio waves don't communicate on the radio frequencies anymore because the antennas are so short that
Because science, Dan.
Because science, yes.
Yes, but I thought that yes, they could have an uncombobulator on the other end that would bigify an amplifier or something
Well,
or other.
that's just
a
unrealistic,
wavelength
Dan.
stretcher.
Dabbling in the realms of fantasy now, isn't he?
All right.
No, they
so,
get Morse code. Yep.
so they got Morse code.
Yep.
And Grant, our James Bond guy, is doing the Morse code. But another one of the pilot is setting up the power system, and Grant says, "Hey, you want a hand with that?" And
It brings
says,
in this heavy thing, right? Shielded lead case, big thing that they put down, unscrew, and then without any radioactive protection or gloves or anything, they take out the thing and
Yeah.
hold it in frund of the genital.
But he assures them, he says, like, it's just radioactive. And he says, no, it's fine.
particle. Yeah,
it's fine. It's fine.
So why did they need the big, heavy lead box?
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
What's the premise of the radioactive?
They have a radioactive particle.
You cannot
super
shrink.
small because you can't
they say
shrink
that.
it.
You
yes.
cannot shrink radioactive
Material.
fuel, they say.
For
So
some
they
reason.
take a small
for
amount,
reasons, yes.
and then as the sub shrinks, it shrinks to the right size for the
particle.
fuel to then be the usable.
Right. So my question is, how do they shrink the sub but not shrink the particle?
Because you
Because you
can't
can't.
because you can't
Because you can't
shrink
shrink
the atomic.
Oh,
particle.
okay. So it's kind of stuck there,
Yeah.
and no matter what you do, it doesn't change.
Yeah. You missed that one sentence
I
that
missed-
made it make sense.
Well,
Tom
the way
did
because they say particle, not particles, I understand that the shrinking process is essentially you're bringing your particles of your body closer together. The hollow area between your body's atoms gets.
I think he even.
Gets
I think
all
he
right,
called
but-
it
smaller.
a
If you
molecule.
just have a
no.
single
Didn't he
particle,
say a
then
molecule?
I thought he said a particle,
No,
but
you said particle.
doesn't make a difference. A
Yeah,
molecule is still something that that has it's
Because it's as small as it can be, as far
Yeah.
as we don't know of anything smaller in 1966.
if you get smaller by bringing your particles closer together, then a single particle would not get smaller.
yeah, makes sense.
Okay.
See, because
Makes
science.
perfect sense.
Because science.
All explained.
All right. So they set everything up, and they're all kind of ready to go, right? And so they now have to shrink the sub down. Okay, so
Yeah.
they bring out like this little sort of a forklift type thing.
As a kid, that was my I think, despite all the awesome inner body footage, that shrinking, the whole sequence of shrinking,
Yep.
as a kid was my favorite part of the film.
Yep.
It's rather not. It's rather well done in that it's a 2-stage process. They don't
Yes.
do it in one go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So they engage the shrink ray or whatever it is, and
They go down to a certain, and then I love the way they load it into. They place it on the surface of a fluid-filled container, which turns out to be a syringe.
Yeah,
right?
but
it's like a meter tall. It's,
Yeah.
and they just
So they
they've got
shrink the sub down
Yeah.
to like a little toy sub.
and then the sub has to submerge down into the fluid that's in this syringe.
So they put it in a tank.
yeah.
Which looks like a tank, but they're going to shrink the tank down again.
Yeah.
And so the tank becomes a syringe.
So
syringe.
these probably 1,000 liters of water, you reckon?
Something like that.
Yep.
Big.
They all get shrunk down, those 1,000 liters of water,
That's right.
and get injected into Dr. Benish.
Yes.
Yes.
Saline.
What happens to those 1,000 liters of water
Well, it's
after
probably
60
saline.
minutes?
Small
I'd
water.
What
say-
happens
becomes
after 60
small.
minutes?
Becomes small.
Oh, you mean the 1,000 litres of...
Yeah.
That's not the biggest problem that I have, Tom. There's a submarine that's still inside the guy.
And the
And
laser
it
gun.
doesn't grow.
The laser gun, they didn't take that out with them either, I think. There's so many problems. We don't, it's just another one.
Yeah.
1,000 liters of fluid. Those, the submarine, this little 3-inch little model that they have, this huge machine that they bring, which is a tiny little red forklift at
Yes,
the end. They
yeah.
lift it up, and they built 2 of those models. And they left one out on the windowsill to dry or whatever, and then a crow came and stole it. Carried it off.
I think a copious amount of blue screen was used in the film. You could definitely see blue screen fringing, but there's a couple of shots that look remarkably like rear projection, or possibly front projection in the time.
I'm sure they're doing all the tricks in the book.
Did you ever see that TV show Land of the Giants?
Yeah.
Where they made grappling hooks out of safety
Yeah.
pins and
Yeah.
things like that. It reminded me so much of Land of the Giants when they were small, but they were looking through windows and things like that, and it was just sort of rear projection or front projection, because in that shrinking scene when the sub is being shrunk, you can see all the lab assistants and everybody outside.
Yeah.
The super giant,
Yeah,
right?
all looking down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a buzz.
It's good.
All right, so they've now got the sub inside a hypodermic needle syringe thing.
We had a picture of the woman who puts the... So the needle is big. The syringe is big, but the little duvalaki that pushes down is normal size.
The plunger.
The plunger is normal size. So they shrink the syringe down with all the little guys in there. And I'm thinking, I'm looking at that. And so the syringe is... So the people are still only going to be the size of a... They're not going to be the size of a microbe. But they did play a little bit with scale in this film. And then another forklift, somebody comes and attaches the plunger to the front, and then that has to sort of fit right there. And then the woman goes in the sort of with the needle and sort of gently just puts the needle on, like with an ungloved hands. We see the photo right there. Everybody else is wearing face masks and headsets and gloves. Even the guy who's doing nothing but waving the
I love
the
that.
forklift.
With all this technology, there's still a guy there backing the thing up like a lorry driver, right? It's give me a bit of this, right? Stop, bring it down.
Come on, she's been through the purple room and
she's
been
been sterilized.
All
So
right.
they're shrunk and ready to be injected.
So they basically, they inject them into the scientist guy, Baron or whatever his name was,
Into his
Finish.
artery.
into his artery.
Yeah.
So it's like they go through this kind of waterfall down this metal tube, which is the hypodermic thing, and then they're in the Fantastic Voyage. They're in inner space.
And that's for the first time, 36 minutes into the film, that music starts.
yes.
And then is with us for the rest of the film. Now we have music and we have a soundtrack.
In fact, that whole opening sequence is rather stark. A lot of it is not. There's long bits of silence.
Well,
There's not a lot of
there's
heavy
an overwhelming
dialogue.
sense of procedure that they've done it a million times. You know, everybody knew their place. There was nobody running around. There
But
was
honestly,
no hurry.
if you take the soundtrack away from a movie, that's what a lot of movies are.
Yeah.
If the music is gone, you have lots of times of just silence.
Yeah.
I've spoken about in the past. There was a strange time in cinema where James Bond movies were shot with entire fight scenes without.
Yes.
Moonraker is the
We've
one.
talked about that.
And there's
Yeah.
there's these fight scenes, and Leanne used to make a note of it. It's like, that is the weirdest thing I've ever seen, and I didn't. It looked good to me because you got a henchman with big metal teeth and all the rest of it. I didn't make the leap. I didn't understand what she was talking about. But yeah, as soon as you're aware of it, you can never unhear it. All you can hear is the scuffle of boots on the ground, and you start to hear all this stuff that you shouldn't hear in a film.
Yeah, jackets
And
rustling.
the first half an hour of this film is like that. You start to hear footsteps more and people opening doors and as the golf carts have been driven around and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think it's to create that, the villain, or in this case, it's not the villain, but that underground clinical, I don't know what I'm lost for words here, but it's very sterile.
Yep.
It's very functional.
Yeah.
There's no emotion.
It's not emotional, exactly.
Yeah, it's all procedure. To me, it felt like it was all procedure. They've done it a million times, and this is just another procedure. Except there could be a bad guy, so we're going to have to get you to come along. Even the sub-captain felt like he'd done it a million times, didn't he? He just drove around the arteries and things like that. But,
So they're inside one of the arteries. They've got rolled up maps that they're using, and they've got like protractors and pencils, and they're navigating their way around.
Well, the tech was you roll a map out onto the map deck.
The navigator.
And then that gets fed up into a screen for the pilot to
Yes.
see where he is in the body.
Yes, he had a display scope. Or
Like
something.
like a map periscope.
He had a display replicator or something. He
And
called
let me
it.
tell you, if a map, the way they had those maps, which is just a flat 2D line drawing of a heart or
Pencil
something.
line drawing. I'm very
Compare
sure
that to the pilot who's up there inside a hollow tunnel where up could be down, left could be right. They have to, or which way is the human? Where am I? There's no way to relate one to the other in any way.
But
Absolutely.
I found it interesting that they had to explain to the audience that the big map down there, would be projected elsewhere magically because. That idea of having a thing,
A live feed.
a live
Yes.
feed
Yeah.
is so alien.
Yeah.
But it also allows us to tell the story of Donald Pleasance, who is the actual saboteur, being introduced to how the submarine works, because he ultimately later on drives the thing, and he has probably never ever sit in the pilot seat. So he uses that opportunity to go and talk to the pilot and say, "Oh, you've got a lot of this is lots of buttons here." And then the pilot starts explaining to him a bit of the functionality, which I think. Although he doesn't explain it very well. He says, well, we got a button here, and there's a button for everything.
Yeah.
That was his explanation. But at least we have this visual, this one little scene where the bad guy who later on drives the sub gets introduced to the cockpit.
And he's the map guy, isn't he, in the film? Donald Pleasance. He's
The navigator, yeah.
He's the
He's a
what's his
specialist.
official
He-
doctor medical? He's like a
he's
he's a circulatory expert, I
Something
believe,
like that.
which means he understood the highways and the back streets that they needed to travel.
Yep.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing that they did is that coming up in the film, there's going to be sabotage
Yes.
in the sub.
Yep.
And it's Donald Pleasance, Michaels, the commander, who actually does the sabotage. If you watch it a second time,
You see him excuse himself and go and do
yeah,
it.
he actually goes and does it.
Yes.
So he says, "Oh, I've just got to go into the back room for a minute.
I've got something to do.
Yeah.
He doesn't even come up with a good reason.
And he
So
goes
I've
into
just
the
gotta
back
go
room
and do something.
and you can see him kind of fumbling around in the back there.
Yeah.
And then the camera moves down the back of the sub. Keep bumping the microphone. And he actually comes out of the room and he actually looks a bit guilty. He's got this kind of, okay.
He's got destroyed laser under his fingernails.
Yeah, exactly. Now, the first time you watch it, you probably wouldn't pick up on any
I
of that.
didn't.
No, I never did.
Yeah, but only on the second time. So I thought that was a nice touch, you know, particularly that they've got this kind of real time thing going on. So they're in the artery, and there's all this kind of blobby, kind of waxy, kind of oily, bubbly, kind of special
blood
effects.
cells.
Red
Yeah, I
blood
think they do a
cells
good
floating
job to sort of
around.
explain why they're not in some inside some red goo and they can't see anything. You know,
Well, the plasma is transparent. It's only the
Yeah.
blood cells that.
yeah.
that make it red.
Science-wise, they struggle to qualify why there's so much light inside the body. I don't know. Maybe it's sort of leaking through the dermis.
Okay.
When we do 3D characters, we do subsurface scattering, right? Where light goes through your ears or through your nose. You put the sun behind you, so possibly
Tinted a bit red.
possibly that's
Possibly.
what's going on here. But it's always brilliantly lit. You know, the interiors of the body. But yes, they did well to explain why things look the way they did without getting too far down in the weeds.
But interesting special effects. Lots of superimposition, filming of bubbles. And
So
then
they'd obviously
superimposing them.
filmed some liquids with various different, like
Yeah.
oil and
Yeah.
water mixing together, and then tinted it red and
Lots
whatever.
of A over B compositing.
Haven't mentioned yet that this film did get the Academy Awards for special effects.
Oh,
in
did it?
1966.
Yes.
Nice. It deserved it.
Yeah. Like every shot, like I think we've said before, pretty much every shot was a special effect of some description.
$1 million of the $6 million budget was spent on R&D,
Yeah.
on pre-shooting. And
It's
filming.
all on the screen. It's clean. Like I said before, you got to remind yourself it's a 1966 movie.
So Benson, or whatever his name is, Benish, has an arterial venous fistula.
What does this mean?
This was a previously undetected arterial venous fistula.
Well, the plan was to just travel nicely up a highway, up an artery highway.
Take a left at the brain.
So that we can avoid the heart and be crushed.
Yeah, so we
right?
don't get crushed in the heart.
We're just going to cruise up. Well, they were injected in the neck, I believe,
Yes.
and they're just going to cruise up to the brain, do the job, and then cruise back down, and then
Couple of minutes,
come out
in and out.
in a similar area.
Not a problem.
But what was it called?
An arterial venous fistula.
Sucked them from an artery into a vein.
Yes.
What a-
This is a special medical condition where an artery and a vein join.
Oh, they do exist.
The
They've got
little
some
cross
sort of
street.
hole in them or something. Or
They
other.
go through some
Combinations.
turbulence and find themselves heading fast towards
Yes.
the heart.
I'm a bit rusty on my medicine, but babies have something like that as well. I think somewhere
Right.
in there's some blood vessels that in a newborn are fused and then they separate as they
Okay.
within weeks of.
So the end result is that there's a kind of a whirlpool that
Yes.
kind of sucks them in.
Oh, tremendous suction happening.
Yes.
They, People slide up the walls. and
That's
they get
right.
held. And they
Yes, the
felt
gravitron,
pleasant.
Yes.
the gravitron effect, which is sort of people. You shoot it close enough, and it's just people standing up.
Yeah, rising up on their toes.
Spared no expenses on the special effects
It
here.
was brilliant. And then the pilot was just pulling faces. He was pulling G-force faces.
Yeah.
But we're now going south. We were going north.
Yes,
And we're now
towards the
going
brain.
south, yes.
And we're going
And everything
south.
is blue. Everything that the blood is no longer oxygenated. It's
Yeah.
now the blue blood, not the red blood. So they realize they're in a vein all of a sudden, going in
Yes.
the wrong direction.
Yes. So yeah, there's no way. Oh, they're going to have to go through the heart. This is their only option, and they've previously explained that they would be instant doom.
Yes.
if they
In the
go through
briefing,
In the briefing, they were warned.
Steve
Foreshadowing.
Grant was
Yes.
he was adamant that we said in the we said in the briefing that was bad.
Yes, but you said that was bad. Yes, exactly.
That's important to note that the outside world are tracking them via the
Oh, yes.
radioactive isotopes.
In fact, they have about 6 tiny little radar dishes around the head
Yes.
of
and
of
said
the
tracking is then
scientists.
translated to the 35-foot mannequin on the wall with a flashing light that they reposition manually by hand,
So they can see where
which
they're
I thought
going.
was good for film.
So they can see they're going the wrong way.
Yes, they're heading south.
Was this made after or before the Battle of Britain?
Oh, after
This film?
Yeah.
Yeah, but not that far
60s.
after.
This is after World War II.
No, the film, the Battle of Britain.
Oh, the film, the battle.
Could have been around the same time.
Okay, I thought you meant the actual
Oh, no.
Battle of Britain.
Because it is very similar to those
Yeah.
battle war rooms where
Yeah,
they move
exactly.
the pictures of
Well,
the
that's
planes.
what I thought as well. That it was
Yeah.
actually very similar to the real world things that they
Yeah, yeah.
used in the Battle of Britain.
Phone on silent, shall I?
Boo!
It's okay. Dave will edit this out.
Yep.
Yep,
No, we
no,
won't.
Just
one
like
will,
that.
no one will ever know.
Okay.
All right, so
We all know.
Michael, who's the commander, wants to insta quit.
Yes.
Okay, so we've got to go through the heart, and he's like,
Slash bad guy.
Slash bad guy. He's like, well,
It's
too
over.
bad.
It's over, man.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
But the generals back in the office, they have a plan.
Yeah.
That's where he gets out his slide rule and does some calculations on how fast a submarine can go through a heart.
Yes. But against the distance is also how long can we keep the guy dead?
That's right. They're going to freeze him
They're going to
dead,
stop his heart
stop his heart, and he will die dead, die.
if it's longer than 60 seconds.
Yes, but it fortunately only takes exactly 57 seconds to get across the heart.
It's 60 seconds to dive, 57 seconds to get across the heart.
So this
according
is doable.
to the slide ruler.
So this is doable.
So therefore, give it a try.
That's how we do it in movies.
And I love the way that this technically has to be super exact.
Hmm.
And he's just there for his little slide, you know, oh, yeah, that'll be about right. Like, you know, like most human beings can't even, you know, measure. You know, it's not saying they're about to chop accurately.
He's a general. He can't do these
Yeah,
things.
I guess that's why he's a general, isn't it?
What else does he do most of the time other than slide ruling?
He smokes a cigar.
Yes.
He smokes a lot of cigars.
That's right.
And he walks around making decisions.
He drinks a lot of coffee with a lot of
loosens
sugar.
his tie a lot, and he sweats a lot.
He sweats a lot. He constantly pours coffee. He constantly pours
Yeah.
cigars and sugars. And I'm just waiting for the line.
That's right. He has an incredible
No,
amount of
he's just
sugar.
going-
He pours about this much sugar in a cup of
I
coffee.
just mainly want him to say, "Oh, feels like the wrong day to quit smoking."
All right. So they then
Go for
go
it.
go for it.
Go for
so
it.
They, as they get closer to the heart, you can hear this big boom, 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 boom going on outside.
Oh, and the actors act. They
Yeah,
act.
and the motion acting.
yes,
they
yes,
Yes.
and they go through the heart.
The valve stays open. They go through the heart. I thought the heart journey was, as a set piece, was pretty cool. All of those.
The muscle, the little,
kinda
little
made
a muscle.
muscle fibers.
Yeah.
They kind of
Network.
made the valve as well in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
heart that opens and closes.
Yeah.
I believe that this actual movie was used as a teaching tool in
Yes.
medical
this is
colleges.
in the trivia
Really?
pages.
Yeah. Because remember, at the end, they thank all of the medical people who told them all of the.
They had a lot of advisors on the film.
Mm-hmm.
Did they have?
And Richard Fleischer himself, the director, used to be. He dropped out of medical school, but he studied medicine.
Did the crew that did the Thunderbirds consult, because some of those miniature shots were straight out of the pages of the Thunderbirds? The scale miniature, shooting scale miniature is not easy. Making it, having the depth of field and everything work is not an easy thing to do.
Well, they put a lot of effort. It was, like I said, there's a special effect on everything. There's not. They're not out of the woods yet.
No, but they do make it through the heart.
So they make it through the heart and they come out the other side
Not a second to spare.
with
With less than seconds to spare, they go over 60 seconds.
They do.
They try to start the heart and then it doesn't start. And then they press the button a second time and now it starts. And everyone breathes relief.
And this is kind of, I mean, the next thing that they have is this is the gas trouble. They have gas trouble next.
Well, they're running out of air. They've sprung a leak.
Yes. In fact, there's a short circuit in the valve air system of the submarine.
That's right.
Right. So they go and check it and they're like, yep, one of the fuses is broken or something or other, but they don't have enough air.
Yeah.
So they're going to need some more air.
And they think that might have happened during the whirlpool ride, do they?
No,
Maybe.
during the they actually say during the shock to bring the heart back
Yes.
in.
Right. But is that what happened? Or was it actually another act of sabotage?
We could have been. Could
We
have
don't,
been.
do they
know
not
if they actually
explain it?
it.
No, I don't think they do.
But I think it was probably some sabotage.
Yeah. So now they're in. Once again, call it off. Call
Yep.
it off.
Michael's, the leader's like, nope, call it off.
The only thing left to do is to call it off.
And I think at this stage they also noticed that the laser gun is broken.
That's correct.
Now the laser guns are going to be very important because that's what they're going to use to fix the blood clot.
yeah.
They're going to shoot it, you know,
As you do.
as you do, as Americans do. How are we going to solve this problem?
Well, actually, we actually do lasers.
That is what
now
we do. Yes.
for
Oh,
kidney stones. And
maybe
some
they were
blood
onto
clots.
something then.
Possibly.
So they're going to shoot it, but the laser's broken. And this is where Cora says, I was pretty sure I strapped that thing down.
Yes.
All right.
Yes, and at this stage, we sort of we're still not 100% sure whether Pleasant, even though he's given off the creepy vibe.
He's got the creepy vibe. He's got the I'm a quitter vibe.
I think when it comes to
atheist.
Donald Pleasance,
He's an atheist.
Donald
there's a
Pleasance.
bias. There's a bias that you form over
Was
many
that Pleasance
years.
in 66 already established? though?
Well, that's what I mean. Like
Yeah.
in '66, he probably doesn't have that bias, right? So
Oh, true.
it'd be less obvious that he's
Yeah.
the dude, that he's the bad guy that's
Yeah,
going to
because-
get the comeuppance.
Because he's not Blofeld yet.
Not yet. He hasn't
No.
had a
Yeah.
scar running down.
Hasn't done Blofeld yet.
And actually, I'm surprised he doesn't look younger because 20 years from then, or just under 20, he does Halloween. He's the psychiatrist, Michael Myers' psychiatrist.
I saw that in the IMDb, but I don't think
He
I've
seems
seen
to
it.
look the same in every bloody film. He's
Exactly.
Yeah,
That's-
right.
That's
Okay.
what happens when you're prematurely bald.
He was in THX.
No way.
Patrick Stewart
Was
looked
he?
like an old man in the
Yeah,
80s.
He was in THX.
Was he? I didn't know that.
And he's in the Great Escape.
Yes.
Yes, he's in the
Yes.
Great Escape.
And he looks the same.
He looks the same in every film.
Like, is the guy a vampire or
He
something?
might be. He might be still alive.
It's the baldness. If I didn't have hair, I couldn't turn grey, right? You couldn't see me turn grey.
That's why he's the bad guy.
So they were going to cancel the mission because the lasers are buggered.
The laser's buggered and they don't have any more oxygen.
And Cora, I mean, here's again the female on board who is actually the one who says, I can repair this, right? She's the one who builds the laser and maintains it.
Yeah.
She can fix it.
Yes.
So she's going to fix the laser. And then they've got a snorkel on board the sub, which is essentially a big hose.
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah. I got a
But-
feeling these two emergencies were split. They weren't sort of concurrent.
Yeah.
The first one was we're run out of air,
Yeah.
right? And they fixed that by pulling out the snorkel from the top and plugging it into the whatever the mechanism
lung.
inside, the lungs, and taking the raw oxygen from the lungs. And this is the first time we see them in their scuba suits without flippers.
Yep.
And they have to plug the snorkel, and then Lieutenant Grant, Steve, goes for a.
He gets blown
He
about.
gets sucked in and
The
then pushed
line,
out,
his
and then
safety line snaps.
That's
Or
right.
again,
sabotaged.
sabotaged. Exactly.
Possibly sabotage.
But he flies around for a few seconds and then he
Yes.
lands and he just climbs out again. So
Well, a bit of wire work, and then it's almost like we breathe in, and then nothing happens for 30 seconds, and then we breathe out, and then it's all chaos again. In that 30 seconds, he ran up the side of the lung to
ramp.
escape. So the emergency averted. Right, they've managed to top up quite quickly the missing oxygen.
there is an interesting shot in there that sticks with you as well as a child when you watch it. Is that the black particles in the lung? They
Yeah,
talk
yeah.
about there's
right.
the smoke and dusts, the black stuff that's lining the insides of the lung.
Yeah.
Good addition. Nice.
Yeah, no, they
This
take
is
off little opportunities to learn you a little bit.
And
about
considering everybody's smoking in the
Yeah,
movie,
exactly.
it's rather poignant,
Back in
actually.
the
some
60s, everyone was smoking.
yes,
Yeah, I think they were actually kind of hinting at that a little bit, perhaps.
Well, it would have been the scientific advisors who said, okay, well, they could go. Is our set accurate? And the advisors would have said, yep, this is what a lung looks like. Check out the photos that we have here. And you got to include those black particles because that's what lungs look like.
yeah. So
Yeah,
it's
But
dust
explain
and
what they
crap.
are.
Yeah.
So they get their oxygen, they jump back in the ship. So they've been swimming around outside in their cool scuba suits
Yep.
With no fins.
with no fins, which is irking Tom, lying in
Grinds
bed at
me.
night. No fins, no fins.
Yes.
That's why I grind my teeth at night.
Maybe fins don't shrink down.
Probably.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, they explained that
Science.
it's probably because they have straps that strap on and everything that would have actually interfered with all the wires that the actors had. And they think that maybe that's why they didn't wear them on the set.
You have to remind yourself too that they're not. That's man goo that they're swimming around in. It's not water, right? They get out of this. They get back into the sub and their hair's all wet, right?
Yeah.
And you
Yeah, I
have to
was
remind yourself. Okay, that's man goo, right?
Or saline. It's,
I was thinking that looks very
when
clean.
you say man goo, that sounds worse than.
Yes,
Because that's what it is, right? We're talking about the internal fluids
yes.
of the human body is what they're swimming around in.
It's your plasma.
Yes.
It's your blood plasma.
Yes.
Perhaps, yeah, should have been covered in jelly or something or other when they came back out. Okay, so, and then they have to fix up the laser. So they kind of fix up the laser.
Yes.
But
And what do they have to do to fix it?
They have to take
What
the
do they have
radio
to sac-
apart.
They have to
Oh, that's right.
sacrifice the radio.
That's right. So that means that they will not be in communication with home base.
Exactly.
I don't know if this has super negative consequences because home base just keep working out what they're doing anyway. So even
Yeah.
though they're not calling in,
It does
home
add
base
a-
is like, they're turning left. That must mean that they've had this problem. So
They don't quite. Home base doesn't understand why they park in the ear for such a long time.
Yes.
They realize, they're in the ear for minutes and minutes and minutes.
Yeah.
But
they
that's not-
realize this is the shortest route
Yeah.
to get to the brain.
But it creates the tension because you don't
does.
know if the base is going to figure it out every
Yeah.
time.
It's a tension device, and they have to assume, the general has to assume that they're coming out the eye later on.
Yeah,
true. Speaking of the ear, so that's their next destination.
yeah, because it's a short cut. Essentially, they realize if we take this route through the ear, and then Michaels goes again, that's impossible. And the smallest sound is gonna be like a hurricane to us. And they say, well, that's the only way we can get because we lost so much time. We have to take that route now.
Yep.
And just hope that the control outside figures out that we're in here and that they go.
Have to be very quiet, which they do figure out.
So they do figure out. So they're trying to be very quiet in the surgery thing.
It doesn't go well.
No, because of a woman. Again, it's the only other female in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
She stuffs it up because she has to drop
Is
the
it
scissors.
really her fault, or is it the sweaty surgeon that she has to take care
Yeah,
of?
why can't he just? Why does he?
Yes.
It's not like he's doing an operation at the time. He's just standing still with his hands in his
Use
lap.
your hands, sir.
Look, it was a monumental cock up. It was like everybody screwed up. I
So
don't
she
think
drops
we
some
can-
scissors, and that becomes so loud that it nearly kills everybody in the inside the body.
Okay,
And
so
calls Recklewell to fall off into the distance, and then they have to go and retrieve her.
That's right.
and at the
Because
same
that's when she gets attacked, right?
Yes, that's
Yes.
right.
At the
yeah.
same time, they're looking out the window at antibodies, which are when you see I don't know, some cells or something that's not supposed to be there, the antibodies attack it.
Yes.
Right, and so they're like the monsters.
Yep.
Now they've also been flying through.
So why are they outside in the first place?
Well, they've been flying through seaweed.
Yes, reticular fibers.
Yes, a type of human blood seaweed that gooped up their
Which we all
engines.
have. apparently.
Clogging up the intakes.
So it's clogged up their engines. So they have to go outside to unclog it.
And all the outside shots were filmed at high speed. So they played back at slow-mo.
Oh, really?
So it
Yeah.
looks like a little bit like they're underwater.
Okay.
And when
Oh,
they
is that
throw
how
away
they-
the seaweed, it floats away a little bit slower and gives that underwater effect back.
I couldn't figure
Slow
out
motion.
why, because I thought they didn't look like they were swimming. But there was something that was slightly wrong, and that's it, because it's slow down.
I think it's a good evidence that you only need to, if you include a handful of shots of underwater, and it's normally when they're coming out the bottom of the doorway, the hatch, you can see their hair. Their hair is definitely underwater, right? And they're sort of holding on to the hatch, and
Oh, is that a proper underwater shot?
you can see their hair, and you only need a couple. You do a couple, and then
It sells it.
yeah,
It sells it for the rest of it.
yeah, it's pretty smart.
But
then the
yeah,
wire
everybody-
work you can get away with.
Yeah, everybody was wearing caps to prevent their hair from.
She definitely was.
And she had fairly short hair.
Because she
didn't
has
have long hair.
It's the
Yeah,
same,
she did so-
same problem that we had last show with the black hole,
the
right?
guys-
you can't have long hair if you want to show zero gravity.
Yeah.
Hopefully, a shot will come up here, and you'll see that the she's got a cap on.
She's
but
got a cap on, but I think the guys don't.
I think later on the guys don't. Yeah.
Well,
Anyway, yeah, they
while
go-
she's out there, they're unclogging the thing.
seaweed?
That's when they drop the scissors, and there's a big, gigantic shock wave that goes through the inner ear, and Cora gets sort of catapulted off into some different part of the ear, and she gets stuck.
Yes.
And she needs
And
to
then
be
the body thinks she's like
an
a
antibody
disease
or something or other, and the
and
antibodies are
it
coming
needs
for
to
her.
send the antibodies at her.
Because she gets catapulted into the little hairs inside the ear. then-
Yes.
That's right. She gets stuck. She gets stuck.
Which
in
would
the-
have been extremely loud for Benish if he wasn't.
He would have heard that.
He would have heard that. Somebody wriggling the hairs in your ears. Yes. That's what makes the sound.
So Grant has to go and fish her out,
Save her.
Yep,
Yep.
pull her out and pull her back in.
Swim faster than the antibodies while they're being chased by them. And
They don't quite make it.
just as they're about to enter the submarine, she gets wrapped up in them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they
Completely.
start to
So
constrict.
they're kind of like
Constricted,
jellyfish. They sort of stick all over her. There's like hundreds of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they all cover her. So they haul her inside, and then they have to rip them off, where
Yes.
there's a fun exchange happens.
Yes.
Everybody gets to grope right.
Raquel,
Cool.
Well, tell the story properly.
Okay, Richard Fleischer wrote his memoirs, and in the book he explains that shot when they filmed that they were all being so these fibers they harden and then they become crystallized and they break very easily.
So this is what's supposed to happen in
That's
the story.
supposed to, and so she's in
And
this
she's covered
cocoon,
in them.
and they're supposed to take them all off and break them all off, and they were all
Smash
being
it.
gentlemen and not go to her breasts.
Yeah.
And so in the end, she was lying there with this
Like
with,
bikini.
with a bikini made of antibody crystals, and he goes, "That looks weird. No, you gotta rip them all everywhere. You gotta rip them all everywhere." And so second take, they all went for the breasts. All three men. It's just, and he goes, "This looks wrong on film as well. They're just all groping for her breasts." So he essentially had to sit down and plan the whole thing and choreograph. You're doing this, now you do that. And he directed the three actors to do it.
Because I was actually looking at that because when I see the hands scrabbling, I thought, oh, this is interesting, and it did look like they were trying to be gentlemen.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like you could see them going sort of for her armpits, and then. But there was this whole band across the top of her chest that they seemed to be avoiding more or less.
Yeah.
But you do see that it's not left at the end.
Yeah.
They do remove. Maybe they don't show it all in the film.
So I thought that was a really cool sequence. I really liked that there were these sort of jelly things that would crystallize and become really, solid.
Yeah.
The other thing that I liked about it as well is it just reminded me of Aliens and
Yeah.
Alien. She was kind of, when the face hugger
face
was,
huggers.
and she was kind of stuck, and it was.
It reminded me of Stellar Star again in the film that we. She gets frozen. What was that? Battle Beyond the Stars or
Yes.
whatever it was.
Yes.
She gets all white and gunked up and carried into the spaceship as well, and then they have to because she gets frozen. That's right.
That
and
was
then they have
the
to
David
thaw her up.
Hasselhoff one.
Yeah, that was David.
Yeah,
Hasselhoff.
that's right. Yep.
Was that the one with the space herpes?
No, that's Ice Pirates.
Ice
That's a
Pirates.
different one again.
So much garbage.
All right. So, so they now are free to move again, and they head into what they call the human mind.
Yes.
I think they meant they went into the brain. I
Yep.
think the mind is slightly different from the brain.
I believe so. Yes.
But they went in there anyway, and it's there's like all of this electricity. There's all of these kind of fibers everywhere and
Signals, little sparks.
sparks. And,
Yes.
and,
And
stuff
it never
going
gets
on.
explained how they go from in a fluid from the blood plasma in a submarine to suddenly walking in the brain.
Yeah.
At what do they cut through a wall there? I mean, they've got to do some damage going out of a blood vesicle into anyway. Suddenly they're walking.
Science is how they
Yeah.
did it, probably.
Yes.
But very quickly they see the blood clot,
Yeah,
which is this
it's right
big
in front of
black
them.
thing
Dun, dun, dun.
that
They
they've
go
got to
out.
stop. Right?
And but only 3 of them go out. Grant goes there to protect the because they still think if the surgeon is the he could do damage, and so he goes along to pay attention.
The
Michael's tried.
sub captain and Michaels is left in the sub.
They left in the sub. Michael's tried to do one last attempt at sabotage by trying to force Duval to test the laser.
Yes.
Duval had to surgically shave off some metal to make a thinner wire, which
That's
is,
correct.
he's a surgeon, he's got the steady hands, and he doesn't want to test the laser because it only has a limited amount of lifetime. So again, we go, who's sabotaging what?
Yes.
Does he not want to test it because he's the saboteur?
Yep.
But Michael wants it tested in the hopes that it maybe blows the fuse.
Yep.
And they agree, no, we're not going to test it. We only have a few shots in it. So he stays behind for some reason.
So he stays behind for some reason. Duval goes out.
Cora
goes out, and Grant goes out. And they start shooting with the laser beam. They start shooting the blood clot. And I suppose this is the last chance for Michaels, who's from the enemy.
He finally reveals himself.
Yeah. What is his motivation? Has he been bought by
Yes.
the enemy?
We must assume.
That's why that's the way I took it.
We can only assume.
Yep.
Was he? Because I was trying to figure out because I thought if it's Duval's because chances are he's been bought by the enemy or he kind of feels against his Christian beliefs that they're doing things they shouldn't be doing.
Yep.
But with Michaels, I thought, is it just the enemy or is there some other?
Never gets explained.
It never really does it?
We don't learn
He
who
could
the
have
enemy
been part
is.
of the enemy the whole time.
Yeah.
He's just
don't know.
bad.
Because I was thinking if it's him, it's maybe because he's.
Maybe he's not bought. Maybe he's just a wicked asshole.
Because we
He's just a troll.
because we did skip the fact that he's claustrophobic. And
That's right.
And doesn't
Oh, yeah.
want to be there.
Yes.
So when I was suspecting him, I thought, is he just want to get the hell out because he's claustrophobic?
Yes.
And there's nothing else to it.
That is possible why they put that in the beginning.
Yeah,
to show that he is uncomfortable.
And that's why I thought that's why he's always trying to quit. He's trying to sabotage. He just wants to get the hell out.
Which is
So this is
meta.
a red herring that they put into the story, is what you're thinking.
Yeah.
And it's meta level, right?
Yeah.
Because for the audience, what that means is that when he does do weird things and say weird things, they've already planted a seed that explains that.
But then obviously if his motivation was just he wants to get the hell out, he wouldn't care about the scientist. He wouldn't want to stop the scientist from actually, once they're there, healing the guy. So it must be, his motivation must be something else.
Yeah.
Which must be...
He could have been a sleeper.
Yeah, that's what it must have been.
Yep.
So
he knocks out Captain
Submarine pilot, the actual captain, the actual guy.
Yep.
And he turns on all of the jet blasters and he tries to go for ram speed.
Yep.
Into the
No
brain.
plan whatsoever.
He just tries to ram something.
Just
Ram the brain, yeah.
Ram the
rams.
brain.
And Steve or Grant
Yes.
quickly grabs the laser.
Yes.
So operation is finished. Successful.
It is finished, is it?
Yep.
He grabs the laser off Duval, turns quickly and blasts the side of the ship that's going to get him out of there.
Yep.
To try to stop him. They know what he's up to. They know that he's going to kill Benish if they don't take it out.
They know somebody is up to. They know a submarine is coming. Could be either of the two. Could be
Yes.
the pilot.
That's right.
So Grant jumps back into the submarine, finds that the pilot's been clonked on the head, and Donald Michaels is like in the cockpit.
He's
Pinned.
squeezed,
Pinned,
down.
but because the submarine has crashed into something,
Yes.
he's kind of pinned underneath the wreckage.
And
So
the body is now cranky.
Yeah, because the submarine crashed into something. The defense cells come. The white blood cells come and attack.
Yes.
So the defense blob comes and eats his face. Is what happens.
Slowly moves and devours, and the whole time he's struggling. My memory as a kid of this film is really just that
horrific.
scene.
Yes, that
Yeah,
scene is
same here.
memorable.
It's really just that scene.
Same here.
I remembered it as far more horrific than it actually
It's
was.
very tame, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't get to see it at all.
But as a little guy,
Exactly.
it was to me
Yeah.
it was horrific.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But even as a little kid, that did not make sense to me. That why is it now safe? Why is the submarine not in danger of blowing up Bench's brain why does it not go back to its normal size?
Because
That
I assumed the white blood cell ate it up.
that did not make sense. The atoms are
That's
still
the
there.
only thing that can make sense.
Strangely,
Rick, is that
they
the submarine
didn't-
gets eaten.
No, strangely, they didn't lean into that because they laser beamed the white blood cell thing, the blob, off the sub.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
They did show it coming to life, or it was
Or was
still
that a different
alive
one that they lasered off?
The one that was,
after the
they ca-
laser beaming.
I don't know, maybe another one.
Well, the
came
laser
along.
eventually fails. The laser
Yes.
suddenly doesn't work
That's
no
right.
more, and then they have to give up, and the blood
I think
cells
they
devour
lasered
the
it and it stopped, but didn't kill it because it did. There
Oh,
was
one
definitely-
completely vaporized. One blood cell was lasered and it just faded away.
Yeah.
It was
Yes,
gone.
that's right. That's
But there would have been more coming.
All right,
and-
so now we're helping out the riders, and
Yes.
we're like,
Yes.
well, probably.
Well, actually, the control room loses the ship.
Ah, that's right. Yes,
They disappear off the map.
they think it's been destroyed because they can't track it anymore.
All right.
So maybe whatever the
hang on. No,
amoeba is, they took it out.
track it because they see that it's not moving, and then they go, because how do they realize that our heroes are coming out the eye?
Because that's where it was last seen. And
They see that the submarine is stationary and that they have only a few minutes left, and they go,
There is.
these guys, if
Yeah,
it
you're
was me,
right.
they say, if
They
it was
must-
me, I would make a run to the optical nerve and get out.
Yeah, they just
That was the leap
They
that
did
the
a
general
Sherlock
made.
Holmes kind of deductive.
Yeah.
If I was doing it, I would have done this.
The general makes a leap of faith and deduces that
It's the only logical
for the
thing.
sub to be there, then and no longer moving or no longer relaying a signal or whatever, then it must be destroyed. But we have to assume that they're not dead. Now, how are they going to get out? Must be the eyeball.
Must be the eyeball. So
I would-
suddenly a
I would
microbe-sized
make it to
human
the eyeball.
can run there within 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Up the eye. Suddenly they're
Yes.
I like thinking they're slowly starting to get bigger. How can they travel all that distance in such a short time? And now only after knowing the film for 25 years, now I'm ashamed that I never realized it myself before. Is well, if they can get out of the eyeball in 2 minutes, why didn't they go
Into the eyeball.
into the eyeball
to get there in the first
Why
place.
didn't they just take two people with a laser, just walk into the eyeball, laser the thing, get out, 5 minutes,
Yes.
done?
Yes.
That is a very good
That's
point.
just like the Eagles in Lord of the Rings.
Yes. Exactly.
You just don't go there.
Because the reality is they didn't even need a sub, right? They just give them a laser each,
And a frog suit.
stick them in the eyeball. Off you go.
And then like these people are supposedly microbe size.
Yeah.
And just with a big, surgical magnifying glass,
Yes.
he's able to see them splashing
Splashing
around.
around,
in
yes.
the
Again,
eyeball.
I'm thinking they're already in the process of becoming bigger. That's
It must
how I
be.
always explain that.
It must be because they're over the 60
Yeah,
minutes, aren't
it's
they?
slowly. It's a slow process.
Yeah, yeah.
Getting
So a
bigger.
little single tear comes out of
Yes, they
the
get him out
scientist's
onto a
little
what's a microscope?
Oh,
thing?
plate,
glass
glass.
slide. It's a glass slide.
Yeah.
and then they take him back to the
Shrinking room.
shrinking room, test chamber,
Yes.
and they get bigger. And everybody has slaps each other on the back, and we're done.
And they everybody just sort of walks off,
Yeah,
they
nobody
take
goes,
off their-
weren't you 5 people? Now you're 4. Hang on. Nobody.
And where's
nobody.
the sub?
Everyone just goes, yay.
I do believe there's a round of applause and things
Yes,
like that.
yeah, slaps on backs.
Yeah. Then
Nobody
the
does a head
credits
count.
roll.
But like the sub's missing. Where's the sub?
And also, like, there's no sterile areas. Like, could they be contaminated? It's all,
Yeah, no.
It's actually reminds me of the Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Yes.
When the aliens start releasing people,
Yeah.
and suddenly there's like bureaucrats
Yes,
taking down people's
that's right.
names, and there's a whole army of people.
No more sterile.
on-
There's ants running rampant
Yeah,
on the desks,
that's
eating the
it.
sugar.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
I just laughed. It's just like everyone just turns up. It's like, at the end of an AFL match on the MCG, and before the rules came in, I don't know if you ever saw an AFL match at the thing. You used to be able to jump the thing.
Oh, yeah, at the
and-
end of the game.
At the end of the game,
Yeah.
and everyone would take their footy and have a kick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It just looked like chaos.
Yeah, and that's what it was. It's like the game's over, everyone on the field.
Well, the ending in this is almost symbolic of some of those films that we complain about where they just roll credits.
Yeah.
Right? We never get to see the result of it, like the guy wake up.
Yeah.
Right? The guy, there's no result of the crescendo.
It's not needed for this film. This film is visual.
It certainly shows us enough,
beauty,
right?
right?
We got the sense of
demo.
success.
It's a very straightforward story.
Yeah.
It's all about the visual. This film. It's not
the
a-
way
But
they all
you're
just
right,
sort of
it doesn't-
disperse, people just start walking off.
Yeah, it doesn't give you a conclusion.
Yeah.
What?
It gives in the sense that we expect what we expect to happen happens.
Yeah.
Right? We expect them to do the operation, and they do the operation. The guy is saved,
Yeah.
and then they get out.
Yeah.
I think that is our conclusion.
Yeah.
What else do
we
we
can
need?
only conclude because of all of the backslapping and the celebratory self-congratulation round of applause that the guy survives and tells them what they need to know.
Him waking up is not important because what would we learn? We would see him open his eyes. It's not
But
not important
Yes,
for the
yeah,
story.
yeah.
But nowadays we would have a scene where, say, for instance, Grant
That's right.
would be looking through a room while the guy they saved, delivers information or he's
Yes.
interrogated.
Yeah.
Maybe.
We would see that scene.
We need to see the happy ever after, the result, the what was gained from.
Yeah, or you cut to 4 years later when
Yeah.
they're all having the reunion.
Yeah.
And that's where we, over drinks, we hear them talk about the success of the
Yes.
Well,
the shrink ray.
This
and
movie led into an animated series. I think 12 episodes
Yes,
of
I
an
saw
animated
some-
TV show.
Saw some
No,
graphics.
I didn't know that.
And
Yeah.
in this TV show, they go on missions and they always
Similar
have to
to
miniaturize.
the old school Star Trek
Yes,
animation
exactly.
style.
Oh, wow.
And the enemy has the same thing. They've got spies that they detect in small places. And in
I'd
that
look that shit up.
Yeah.
in that animated show, it's I think it's 24 hours. So the shrinkage is still limited in time, but now it's 24 hours. I think.
All right. So he didn't know much after all.
Well, there's a big jump from 60 minutes to
Well, it's
24
good,
hours.
But it's it could be better.
Yeah.
He only had one idea.
We
He
risk
didn't
a
have-
lot to save him.
24 times It's not bad.
It's not bad.
Slowed it down a
And,
little
on
bit.
the way.
and it's nice and clean. It's not like 24 hours and 32 minutes.
Yes.
It's a good 24 hours.
Nice round number again.
My my improvement for the story, improvement is like, why did they have Donald Pleasance as the bad guy who was so obviously the bad guy at the start? You could just kind of pick that he was the bad guy.
I've got a theory. As I said, I believe that we are biased.
Yeah. 'Cause
Yes.
we're not-
Because he's the bad guy.
'Cause we know
in
that he-
everything.
But he was the kind of snivelly,
Was it
quitting...
obvious for 1966 is the question.
That's right. He was the comeuppance guy. He's always
Okay.
got his comeuppance in the film. And every time he was in a movie, he somehow did something wrong. He had ethical boundaries that were always brought out in the film, and then got his comeuppance by the end.
All right.
That was who he was. I got him mixed up with Ernest Borgnine from. I thought it was
sniveling sort of character.
Yeah, I thought it was Ernest Borgnine in this film that got enveloped by the
Yeah.
white goo,
Ah.
but it was Pleasance. But yes, we've seen 20 films where he's the same guy,
Always the bad guy.
whereas in the 60s maybe not.
Yeah, all right.
Ernest Borgnine would have played that role exactly the same.
Exactly.
Yes.
He would have been exactly
Yep.
well cast as well.
Yep.
Yes.
Absolutely. All right, gentlemen. Let's. That's it. That's it for the Fantastic Voyage. Our narrative journey through the film. Let's rate it. Our rating system, although Dan likes to step outside the boundaries of our rating system. Burn, borrow, buy.
Mm-hmm.
Is that it? Buy,
Yeah.
borrow, burn. Yeah, buy, borrow, burn. I said it backwards. It sounded totally wrong. Dan, what do you give this one?
That's an interesting question. I don't think it's burn,
Yep.
and I don't think it's quite buy, but yeah, it's probably high borrow.
Yes.
I borrow.
Yes. If you came across it at
Borrow
one,
and keep it for longer than the person said you were allowed to take it for.
you possibly would watch it if you came across it at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Saturday afternoon or something. You wouldn't switch it off, right? But yes, you probably wouldn't.
Classic
purchase
piece
it.
of
Okay.
cinema. The special effects are amazing if you're thinking, within the time period.
It's a piece of cinema history.
And the story is also fairly straightforward. We've complained before. I've complained before about complex stories with all sorts of stuff going on.
It hasn't got its head up its own ass.
This one is just fairly straightforward, fairly simple.
Yep.
Well, yes, and they didn't go to the arse regions
Yes.
of the.
Although the
in
movie
any sense
poster,
of the story.
the movie poster can sort of mislead you a little bit. Every time you see
Yeah,
the
true.
graphics, they're heading towards some kind of sphincter-shaped thing.
And I was going to say, where are you going with the arse region?
We have to operate in the brain. We have to get in through the rectum.
That was the sequel that they
Takes a
never
long
made.
Yes, and you can almost see a spoof shot of this film somewhere along the line there. We need to go through the anus. Do we really?
So Austin,
I think we do.
Mike Myers, for Austin Power fame, that was one of his ideas for Austin Power sequels, was the Shacktastic Journey.
Okay.
Where he gets miniaturized and put in the body of Dr. Evil. And I don't know anything more about it, but I would not be surprised if he entered through the end.
There would have been.
For
All right.
no good reason. Tommy.
High Burrow.
Well, I'm angry with myself that I forgot to bring in my DVD because I wanted to put it on the table here for the cameras to see.
So you've already put.
I bought it.
You're a buyer.
Oh, yeah, I bought it
on
years
this
ago.
one, Rick.
I'd buy cheap.
Okay. Yeah, I think I could put it in my. Now that I've seen it again, watched it all the way through, freaked me out a little bit when I watched it when I was younger. I might have only been about 6 or 7.
Well,
something
that
like
scene there with that was the freaky thing.
That's
Yes.
what I remember. That's what's
Yes,
indelled in my.
it freaked me out a little bit, and I don't think I saw it again for at least another 2 decades or something, and then didn't really have the opportunity to sit and take it in. But watching it last week, I watched it twice, and it definitely belongs in my collection. Yeah, it's a piece of cinema history, I think. So we've got a buy, borrow. No burns
Hi,
tonight.
borrow.
High Burrow.
Remember, for Dan, it's always at least.
There's always a sliding
mine's,
rule.
Mine's a bit of a slide. Buy cheap. I wouldn't buy.
Buy cheap. Well, I bought it. I don't think this is the kind of movie that you can buy.
I don't think you
over,
can buy
over $10.
Yes, you can't buy an expensive version of this.
All right, gentlemen, I'm going to throw 10 questions at you to test how much you were paying attention to the film. All
Right.
of the answers of the questions were in the film and not external to the film as far as trivia. I'm going to switch your buzzers on here.
Hands on buzzers.
And he's one of us, a saboteur.
And And if you answer a question and you get it wrong, then I'll lock you out and the other two remaining people can buzz in. And if
But you
someone
won't be
gets it wrong, then
silenced.
it's up to the last person.
You can still talk.
Yes, no, you won't be silenced.
Eventually, you'll be silenced.
Yes, eventually you will be silenced. Question number 1. Which airline did Benesh fly in on? Tom.
TWA.
TWA.
Is mine working?
Oh,
Sabotage!
hang on, let's just test. Yes, it's working.
Wow.
Question number 2. What does CMDF stand for? Tom.
We already said it. Isn't it Combined Miniature Deterrent Forces?
You got that correct, yes.
I knew you were going to ask that question. And I was thinking, should I write it down?
And I
was
knew-
thinking, no, I'll just remember it.
I knew you would have
Did
known,
I remember it?
And I still
no,
did it.
I didn't remember it.
And in the animated show, it's slightly changed. It's like the Combined Military Defense Forces or something. They
Right.
slightly changed the name of it.
Same,
Still
Right
the same.
reasons.
Yeah.
same acronym.
Yeah, same acronym.
Question
Oh,
number
same initialism.
Question number 3. What was the sub designed for? Ricketts. Yes, Ricketts.
For going in the body, wasn't it?
But this is a military
Wrong.
unit. Why would they have a
It's
sub to go?
Incorrect. You are now locked out of the question.
Oh,
Dan.
I thought you'd done it.
No.
Deep sea research and fish catching.
I will accept that. It was pescatorial research
Oh, that's it. It's
or
tutorial.
spawning habits of deep sea fish.
There you go.
So are they going to sit inside a coral while it spawns and they watch it in?
No, I understood it that they were. It was just a big submarine, which is a regular submarine. That's
Oh, it
what it
wasn't
was.
designed. Of course, it didn't have
And
to
they
be.
just
It was
grabbed
originally
it.
designed
to
for
take it inside a human body.
pescatorial research.
So it was designed to run on much more nuclear fuel than they actually did. They
Ah,
only reduced it to
no,
one
I didn't think
particle
about that. I didn't
for
think
this
about
movie,
that.
did they?
Yes,
All right.
That's a good point.
Question number 4. What was the original extraction point? Rick.
The
Oh,
artery
yeah,
in the
you're
neck.
right. Nope.
Son of a bitch.
I will accept that
Sorry,
if
Dad,
someone
you're
doesn't. Hang on. I will lock Rick out, but I will accept his
I think you're
answer if
locked
you
down
can't.
The artery in the neck.
If you can't offer a better answer.
Oh,
Because Rick.
the jugular.
Okay, I'm going to
Isn't
take.
that your artery in the neck?
I'm going to take Rick's answer.
What? What was
That is
it?
your jugular.
The base of the neck.
Ah, I thought
So
it
they
was
didn't
the
mention a jugular or a vein or anything. They just said the base of the neck, and he literally pointed to the base of his neck.
Because they had
He
the
pointed
spot
base of
drawn
his throat.
I've got to give him the points, Dan.
on the body.
I was sure they were using medical terms. I'm gonna
No,
have to watch
not on
this
the
movie
not on
again.
the extraction point.
I'm going to have to watch this movie again.
No, they in their injection point. I think they were very clear about artery, but the extraction point was just the base of a neck with a red circle on the 30-foot map.
All right, I'll get my lawyers onto this one.
My decision's still final, no matter how many lawyers you bring. Question number 5. What was the sub's designation number?
I prepared for that.
Tom.
Bloody numbers.
Tommy,
U91035.
Ah, that's right.
U91035 is
because
correct.
we already established that last week.
Tommy
They've-
knows I'm going to
they've
go with
always-
those numbers every time.
Exactly.
I didn't think of remembering the number.
Question number 6. What was phase 3? Rickers.
Injecting into the body.
Incorrect. Rickers out.
Fudge.
So phase 1 is
Tom?
shrinking down to the zero module. Then they elevate zero module. Then they get put into the syringe. And then phase 2 is shrinking down the syringe.
What is phase 3?
Yeah.
Well,
The journey.
Sounds
The fantastic voyage is stage 3.
being injected in.
So Tommy's out. It's up to you, Dan.
Being injected in would be phase 3.
Well, that's what
Okay,
Rick
so
said.
no points across the board.
Oh, is that what he said?
Yeah.
Phase 3 was final miniaturization,
Oh, explain that a bit more.
also known as full reduction. So phase 1 was the first degree of miniaturization. Phase 2 was sticking them in the 1 meter tall
that's
that was
tank
a
thing.
phase.
And then
Okay.
phase 3 was final reduction.
Oh, okay.
Full
Okay.
reduction.
I think the
Okay.
word phase doing a lot of heavy lifting.
All right, question number 7. Who said every beat separates a man from eternity? That was quick. Tom?
It has to be Dr. Duval. Because he's
Duval,
the Christian one.
correct,
Yeah.
yes. Michaels, Donald Pleasance, was visually offended at that statement in the film. Such garbage. You could see it in his eyes.
Religious dribble.
Question number 8. What colour was the sub's snorkel? Rick,
Red.
correct. Currently we have Tom on 4, Dan on 1, Rick on 2. Question number 9. Which company produced the film?
20th Century Fox.
Tom, that's correct. Tom's taking an unbeatable lead. Question number 10. What was unique about the opening title sequence? Now, we've already mentioned, so Rick, you've chimed in, but we've already mentioned there was no music in it.
That's what I was going to mention.
There was something else unique. Let me clear the boards. Buzz in. What was unique about the opening title sequence other than the music?
It only had sound effects.
That's kind of what we mean by no music, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's
Could have been silent.
It's close, but there is a better uniqueness because there is probably there might not be title sequences with only sound effects. The only thing.
So
might
is
have
it
saved
is
you.
it the fact that you have this typewriter?
There was something really unique about that opening title sequence.
Animated text.
Um,
That's not very unique, though.
it's certainly not unique to title sequences.
All right.
All
put
the
out of our
names
misery.
were in lowercase.
No,
The photos of the actors.
no. The title appeared on screen stacked 3 times. It said The Fantastic Voyage, and then it typed it above it, Fantastic Voyage, and then underneath it. And it appeared 3 times on screen at the same time. I've never seen a film title ever.
That rams it home that strongly. This is
All right.
the
Like I've
title.
just have you ever seen a film title
no,
with
that is
the main
unique.
title?
I agree.
And the other unique one was so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give 1 point to Rick, 1 point to Dan, and no points to Tom. But Tom still wins on 5. And you are third. Rick, you came second.
Third.
So you've let yourself down this week, Dan, because last week it was a draw,
Yeah,
5 all
I was surging last week.
out of 10 questions.
Third seems like an achievement, but when you think about it, it's not
Bronze?
really an achievement.
Was it beautiful gold, social silver, and shameful bronze?
Shameful bronze. Yes. What a loser.
That reminds me, The Simpsons redid this shot as well. The Simpsons do an episode where they miniaturize themselves and go into, I think it's Mr. Burns' body. I think I don't remember too much anymore.
Simpsons have pretty much done everything, haven't they?
They do.
All right, so we've done our ratings. Please, if you are into the inane waffle and dribble of a few morons with microphones talking about film, drop us a like, leave a comment, subscribe, dingle our bells on YouTubes, and
Can you say that?
yeah. Apparently, that's what all the kids are saying with their YouTube videos. That's it for another episode. Until next time, it's bye from me.
Bye.
Auf Wiedersehen.
Bye.
What is your industry? How many of you are men?